Hi, and welcome to The Green Room. I'm your host, Jeff Faragher, Music and Artistic Director of Symphony of the Kootenays. The Green Room is a series of presentations we're putting out to give our audience and our listeners the chance to meet and get to know our musicians better. We'll be talking about all sorts of music-related things, as well as hearing great performances from our players. We'd like to thank the BC Arts Council, as well as the Columbia Basin Trust for all their support in these hard times. We're also very grateful for all our other supporters, including especially you, our community. Tonight's show, we have three very special guests. Penny Long is a violin teacher based here in Cranbrook. Stephanie Tichauer is a middle school band teacher, as well as Evan Buekert, who is the high school band teacher at Mount Baker. These three guests are wonderful pillars of our musical community, as well as great educators, and I've had a great time chatting with them. Our first guest tonight is Penny Long of Cranbrook. Penny Long is a seasoned violinist and an extensive violin teacher in the Cranbrook community. Please welcome Penny Long. Hi, Penny. How are you today?
Very good. Thanks, Jeff. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. It's great to have you on the show. Thank you for volunteering to be involved in this, our second ever episode of The Green Room. I'm curious to know more about you and sort of what your life was like, where your journeys took you before moving to Cranbrook.
Well, I lived in the Lower Mainland for about 25 years before I came up here, and before that I was in England, close to London. But in living memory, I guess I'll talk about my time in the Lower Mainland, and the most memorable times for me were playing with the West Coast Symphony Orchestra and all the friends that I made there, and playing chamber music over the years and attending chamber music workshops and that sort of thing. That's what I love to do.
Great. So you moved to the Lower Mainland. You must have fallen in love with BC because you're still here. What was it about BC that, for some people it's the mountains, for some people it's the weather, other people it's just the great arts communities that we have around. What was it for you that made BC so attractive?
The mountains. I had an aunt that used to travel to England, and she used to show us photographs of her home in the Rocky Mountains. And England is beautiful and quaint, and we have lovely seaside resorts and all this sort of thing. But the grandeur of the Rocky Mountains, it really left an impression upon me, and I kept thinking about it, and eventually I came out here.
Nice, of course. And so before moving to the mainland, I'm just interested to know about your education in violin. Like what age did you start studying? Did you pursue violin in post-secondary? What kind of education have you had?
I attended a Saturday morning music school as a child, and I started at the age of 10. And then I played in a youth orchestra. And then there's a great tradition of musicals in England, and the Sullivan musicals, the Mikado, and all those kind of things. So I spent a lot of evenings in pit orchestras playing there.
And obviously, you've chosen to make this a big part of your life and your career, the violin. What were some moments through the years that really made you realize that this is something you wanted to dedicate so much time and energy to?
Just that feeling of music being home. When you're playing as a musician, you just feel that you're your most yourself, and the self that you like the best, and the self that you want to be, and the self that way of communicating with other people, and spending time with kindred spirits, other people that speak that language of music. Those are my happy times, my happy places.
Nice. That's true. I get asked that question a lot. Why music? Why did you choose the cello? I agree that, it's just, you can't not. So of course you moved to Cranbrook. What year did you move to Cranbrook?
Back in 2011.
And so what was it about Cranbrook?
A friend said, "Oh, you should come and live in Cranbrook." And I said, "Well, I'm a musician. That's what I love to do in my spare time. And is there any music in Cranbrook?" And she said, "Well, we have a symphony here." And so I thought about it for a while, and the idea grew upon me. And so I just, with a great giant leap of faith, I moved here, and I'm so glad I did. Everything has worked out really well. And very soon after I came up here, I heard about the East Kootenay Music Teachers Association, a wonderful group of teachers. And I was invited to attend one of their meetings, and then I never left. It's just wonderful to meet with these wonderful innovators and great minds and have that backdrop.
Yeah, I mean, I found that too, since teaching and traveling around the Kootenays, that certainly in Cranbrook and Kimberley and that sort of group of East Kootenay communities, there is a really strong core group of amazing teachers, really, really passionate people. Cranbrook and the Kootenays, obviously, we don't have 36 to 40, students in the specific instrument we teach. Managing that and how you find integrating with, say, other, like obviously you mentioned the East Kootenay Music Association and the groups like that. Like, how do you find and creating opportunities for your students in this community? How have you found that working for you?
Well, one of the things that we love to do, and of course children love to perform, is that we have an open invitation at the Joseph Creek residence place there. And in fact, we're planning to play in the gardens behind the buildings as soon as the weather permits. So that's one thing we do. We prepare for that. And then another thing that I sometimes do, I have what's called a Technique Olympics. And it's a fun annual event for the students whereby they get to perform their scales for each other, because normally you don't get to perform scales, do you? But they're very important, as you know, in learning to play an instrument, because there's, the dearth of performance opportunities at the moment. One thing I wanted to do with them was to give them some fun. And as you know, ear training is an important element of string playing. So I thought of teaching them to play birdsong on their instruments. So I have an audio clip book that plays different bird songs. So I chose birds that are here in the Kootenays, like the chickadee and some of those robins and things like that. And it's remarkable how well the students are able to listen to the bird song and hear the range that the bird song is in, and then be able to even recognize the intervals in the bird song and the rhythms in the bird song, and then to capture the expressive element of the bird song. So we worked on that, and the students seem to really enjoy that. And the idea is that when we go to Joseph Creek in the summertime in the outdoors, is to actually, I'm going to have a Twitter fest, what I'm going to call a Twitter fest.
And that's the right type of Twitter. I like to hear that.
Yes. Yeah. Students Twitter with each other with their bird songs. So that's one of the projects that I've been doing in the last year, just to bring some fun.
Nice. That's a fantastic idea. And I'm sure that when the students are out in nature enjoying, another reason why we're all here in the Kootenays, enjoying nature, and it's just going to continue to, their brain's going to continue thinking about the violin and about the music they're learning. So that's just going to, amplify their learning. That's a fantastic idea. Thanks for sharing that with us. All right. Well, Penny and I prepared a short work for everyone to listen to this evening.
Yes, this is a duo for violin and cello by Albrechtsberger. And we're going to play the Andante first, followed by a fugue.
Our next guest, Stephanie Tichauer, is a flute player as well as a middle school band teacher right here in Cranbrook. Welcome, Stephanie.
Thank you for having me.
Our listeners, probably most of them, especially in the Cranbrook area, are familiar with you. But tell us a little bit about your life before Cranbrook and what sort of led you into a career as a music instructor and as a flute player.
Well, I grew up in Rossland, and I didn't start playing an instrument until I was 13, until I got into high school. At the end of grade 7, I was asked, "Do you want to go into band or art or drama?" And I thought, well, my aunt plays the flute, so maybe I'll do that. And Rossland Secondary School has a fantastic band program, and when I attended, Bob Howard was the director of that program, and he became my mentor. And when I was in grade 9, I decided I want to do this, and I was very fortunate to live in a community where there are a lot of musicians who support students and support their youth, their learning opportunities in the community, and played in high school and went to UVic and studied with Lanny Pollet while I was there, and got to learn how to conduct from Dr. Jerry King and Janos Sandor, and Dave Dunnett was my education faculty advisor. And I did an interview at the end of university for a job in Fort Nelson. And my grandmother said, "Have you seen the temperatures up there? You cannot move to Fort Nelson." I thought, I'm not going up there. I'm just doing it for the experience of doing the job interview. And I got the job, and I taught full time in Fort Nelson for 6 years, grade 6 through 12 band. And
Wow.
yeah, I met my husband there, and it's a fantastic community. We had lots of success and made a lot of memories, and started my family with my husband, and wanted to be closer to grandparents, and moved back to the Kootenays, came back down. We started in Sparwood, and then ended up in Cranbrook, and I'm very grateful to be here. It's a fantastic community.
Nice. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'm sure you've had some interesting performances over the years. Can you tell us about a few of those?
One that really sticks out in my mind when I think about it is actually my very first performance outside of a high school band concert. In Rossland, they have a group, the Rossland Light Opera Players, and they perform Gilbert and Sullivan shows. And when I was in grade 10, they were doing Iolanthe. And the drama teacher at my school in Rossland, her husband, Lauren Cully, was the band teacher in Castlegar actually at the time. And I just decided I want to do this show. And I phoned him up and I said, "I would love to play. Do you need a flute player?" And he said, "I'm not really sure." And I kept phoning, "Oh, have you got the music?" And I kind of decided I would, like a job interview, just keep asking until he said yes. And he did. I was very, very grateful to be able to participate. And my own band teacher, Bob Howard, ended up playing in the pit for that show. And our own French horn player from Nelson, Dale Green, also performed that show when I was 15 years old. And Donnie Clark played as well. And it was just a wonderful, wonderful venue. They were so supportive, and I learned so much in that show. So much. It was a lot of fun.
Nice. Yeah. Those type of community programs can be really memorable because the energy's there. You know, and it's not just a gig to a lot of those players. It's really like the center of their life for the time that it's running. So you can feel that energy and passion. That's why a lot of the communities really support stuff like that. So it's really, really cool. You know, so you grew up in Rossland, you lived on the coast, and then you spent some time in Fort Nelson. What things about Cranbrook really distinguish it as a place for you, both as a teacher and performer, and just, you know, generally for living in the community?
Well, I don't have a lot of experience living in other places. I've never left BC, but what strikes me with Cranbrook right from the beginning is that the community really did embrace me when I came here. And when I started to teach at the middle school here, I've always said and maintained people in this community are so encouraging and so supportive of its teachers, not just its music teachers, but of the education system here. And it's a wonderful community to work in and to be a part of. It's incredible. It's incredible the support that's here.
Yeah, it's definitely a common theme with everybody today, which I you know completely agree with. It's just so wonderful to be involved in a community where people really seem to value, you know, not necessarily art for art's sake, but just having it as a part of their community and knowing the importance just as an educational tool or, you know, just any kind of element. It's part of the fabric, which is really nice. I think in the bigger cities, you know, we have cultures everywhere, and of course there's more of it maybe, but it's just sort of almost taken for granted, whereas, you know, in our smaller communities here in Kootenays especially, I think it's really viewed as something that not only do we need to have, but we need to really put a lot of energy into maintaining. And so I think that's why we get that support for teachers like yourself who come here and we can see, okay, this person's really valuable, we need to support them.
Yeah, and it's just a lot of, I think a lot of the opportunities that are here for music, there's a sense of pride here in town for the people that live here. It's wonderful. Yeah.
Nice. Have you had any really interesting performance opportunities in the Cranbrook region since moving here?
Well, it's difficult because often when I am asked to participate, I'm usually asked to lead.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I have made a lot of wonderful connections with local performers, not just in Cranbrook, but also in Kimberley. There's a lot of really wonderful community bands, and there is a local community orchestra as well. And it's nice to get everybody together to play and to celebrate what we do. It's lovely.
Nice. Wonderful. All right. Well, it's been really lovely to be able to play with you. We're about to play a piece together. Do you want to tell our audience what we're going to be hearing?
We will be performing the Andante from Bach's Sonata in E minor.
Our next guest is Evan Buekert, who is no stranger to most people in the community of Cranbrook. Of course, Evan is the teacher at Mount Baker High School in music and is a very active person in the community, both musically as well as in many other ways. Hi, Evan. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Jeff. Thanks for having me on.
So, Evan, most people that are aware of the symphony or watching the show tonight are probably aware of who you are, but let's hear a little bit more about you. I mean, I of course know you as the person who is so involved in the symphony, but, I'd love to know a little bit more about your life, certainly before this chapter of it as a high school music teacher here in Cranbrook.
Well, yes. Musically, I guess I'm attention deficit disorder musically, I would say. I've just had so many interesting sort of chapters and pursuits as I developed my musical education. I went to Winnipeg after high school to follow a conducting teacher who I was very impressed with and got a diploma there, and that led me to UBC, where I continued with vocals and conducting. Got drawn away in the performance category and spent a long time with woodwinds, and then I switched to voice and spent time with them and all of the vocal groups at UBC, and just had a wonderful time trying to learn as many different things as I could. So I spent about 8 years following UBC with the Phoenix Chamber Choir and toured and recorded and really saw the world that way. It was an amazing musical experience, both for recording, performing, and touring. And then I became involved in clinician work and being a clinician for festivals and for all kinds of different competitions, and eventually found myself in charge of working with the BC MEA honor groups, vocal jazz and jazz bands. And there I started to meet kids, high school kids, and work with them and their music. And I was so thrilled to work with this age group. They were so receptive and so much fun. And it just really opened my eyes to a whole new world of the possibility of music education. It actually convinced me to go back to UBC again and do my next degree and come out with the secondary music education, and got into teaching. And it's been terrific ever since.
And is Mount Baker your first teaching assignment?
After UBC was finished, I worked in the Port Moody and the Coquitlam districts for 8 years.
Okay.
And did lots of work with concert band, jazz bands, and vocal groups there, and started my recording arts programs in that place. Lifestyle choices dictated change was needed, and here we are in Cranbrook. And the symphony, as I mentioned earlier, is a terrific draw, and another reason why I knew the music community in Cranbrook would be so receptive and exciting. But it's just a wonderful place to be musically.
Well, I'm sure that the school, when in hiring you, saw something in you. At the time, would you have ever imagined your programs to be so successful and so well received in this community as they are now?
Not at all. No, I was thinking at best I would be a lifty at the ski hill for a while. That was going to be just fine for a bit. And no, the job interview happened on the side of the road on the way to Cranbrook. I had to stop the car and conduct the interview on the Coquihalla Highway, and I had a position by the time I arrived in town. And it was a wonderful school. It's been so receptive and so welcoming, and the community is just absolutely ravenous for musical development in the students here.
They sure are. Of course, anywhere I go, and I mentioned that, we work together, they just, people have nothing but not just positive, but, glowing reviews about your programs, or someone's had a kid that's gone through, or, even some younger people that have had you as a teacher. It's just, I hear nothing but amazing things. How did you find, how did you find that ability, that stride with this age group?
I think a lot of it is respect is really important. I try to instill in them the fact that what they're doing is legitimate and important and real in the world. And if they are making something artistic and amazing together, it's an experience that is unlike anything else that anyone could possibly experience. That bunch of people getting together and making something that's bigger than themselves. You have to work very hard at it, but I always like to mention the fun in this sort of concept. It comes from the hard work and experiencing the pursuit of excellence and seeing what an audience reacts like and seeing what an adjudicator reacts like, or a whole school group of other music students in a festival jumping to their feet when our groups play really excitingly well. It's a feeling that they just never forget. And that has just been a fun thing that I've always really loved, and I've been wanting to endeavor to share that experience with the students. So I respect their efforts. I know they're always trying their very best. And as a return, they seem to be very comfortable around me, and we seem to have a sort of a mutual appreciation for how everyone is working towards this common goal.
Nice. And of course, that's a huge ingredient in terms of success of your programs. And I mean, having a great teacher is great. But and I'm sure your kids are fantastic that you get. But there are fantastic kids everywhere and great teachers everywhere. Some programs succeed and some don't. Are there other sort of elements that you would attribute to the success of your programs?
Oh, well, I couldn't go further for a second without thanking people like Steph Tichauer and who are giving me amazing students through her middle school that are going up through Mount Baker. The elementary school programs here in Cranbrook are second to none. The incredible amount of things happening at the very youngest of ages in this town. The incredible private piano teachers, voice teachers, string teachers. Penny is incredible. We have several of my students working with you, Jeff, over cello, online, distant learning, and the amount of options for students to really pursue high-end music education at any kind of level has really done a lot. Also, our community, these small folk groups like locals, the community bands and orchestras, besides our symphony, of course, the Cranbrook community theater program, the musical theater scene. There's all these wonderful venues for students to find themselves and realize that what they're doing in the music class that day actually carries a lot of weight into what could happen for them down the road, even that afternoon or evening, going to another rehearsal.
Yeah, it's amazing, and I know at our last concert, one of the last things that I said to our audience, of course, not knowing I wouldn't get a chance to speak to them again, was, sort of one of those moments whereas we as performers, kind of just our minds go blank, and I just kind of errantly said, "Oh, even in a community like this, we can have such great students coming up," and of course, the meaning that I was trying to impart was totally not communicated clearly. I'm always in awe of how smaller communities like Cranbrook and even smaller communities like Nelson can produce some really world-class musicians, and it really the thing that's attributed to is the community involvement at every level, like you said. So we have the private teachers, we have the elementary all the way up through high school programs working in synergy, and I think Cranbrook really seems to have that nailed really well.
Yeah, it was all in place way before I arrived here. I couldn't believe this machine that was just waiting to eat me up and take me into its teeth, and I was just delighted to be able to have a chance to be a part of that. My
Nice.
school guys here, the staff and admin, are so supportive, and they allow me all sorts of wonderful opportunities with scheduling and access to all sorts of opportunities that make the kids feel welcome and make them feel valued in their work.
Exactly. Yeah. And of course, most people in the community are very familiar with you as Evan, the band teacher, the musical organization leader. But what many people may not even be aware of, which is so difficult for me as a music director. I'm the face of the Kootenays, so everybody knows what I'm doing. But you do so much for the Symphony of the Kootenays, and if it's anywhere from just showing up, way before anyone from the orchestra's there, to make sure the chairs are in the hall, to setting up the microphones for concerts, running the AV for us, supplying students to help us out. What are all the different facets? I'm probably not even aware of everything that you do for us, Evan. What are all the things that you've been involved with the Symphony over the years?
No, you've really nailed it. That's a really amazing part of what we get to do. But one of the most amazing things is, in light of our educational sort of theme that we're under today, is I have a program here at Mount Baker called the Work Experience Program, where students can audition and interview with me and get a position, only 2 a year, to get credit for their course loads to be a Symphony of the Kootenays stage manager. They get to learn how to record, how to set the lights, how to set up the stage, how to maintain, clean, and put out the instruments correctly, all the percussion. We help with promotion. We learn to liaise with your technical people and the theater's technical people, and it's just a delight to see this web work where these 18, 17-year-old kids get to be treated and work like full-on professional musicians and producers. So that's a big part of it for me. And then I think that pretty much, it does mention everything that we've been working on. Everything from setting out chairs and stands to post-production on live recordings for grant applications and everything in between. It's a great piece of the puzzle for us.
Well, I think that really speaks to at least how I see your success as being so huge. Is that, not only a modest, you're a modest person. You know what you're doing. You really impart that idea in young people and musicians that you work with. That all that kind of work, not only is it important, of course it's important, but it can be very rewarding and it can be very enjoyable when it's done right. And that, to me, as a performer who is sort of, on the face of everything, getting to benefit from all that work that you do, just really enjoying to see that not only you're doing that for us, but you're also inspiring young people to see the value in that as well. That's huge. That's huge.
I really appreciate that sentiment. It is really fun to be able to, first of all, allow these opportunities. They don't really walk through the door on their own, these students, but if they do see what's in front of them, the ability to do it right and to really be in pursuit of excellence and do it again one more time until it's just perfect, and maybe one more time after tea, that's going to be something that will stick with them, and not just that's good enough, but to really rise to the occasion. That's where the symphony really inspires them. I love listening to you warm up. I drag my brass players through my back door into the backstage and say, listen to these scales these guys are doing. They aren't even looking at any music. Look at how that range is going and everything like that. Yeah, that's another thing that no one mentions, that we eavesdrop on all this stuff. And my music students just get a big charge out of all of the exposure and the environment and the atmosphere.
Well, that's really great to hear because, of course, it's our role to provide great classical music to our audience, but at the same time, we're really there to enhance the community. So by doing that with young people, that's really where we're aiming. So that's fantastic to hear. Evan, you want to tell everybody what they're about to hear?
Yeah, we're going to play for you a semi-improvised sort of trading back and forth jazz version. Not really, well, I don't know. It's Blackbird. Like Lennon and McCartney, how can you go wrong? So we're going to make a cello piano duet for you, and we're hoping you enjoy it.
Very nice. That was Blackbird featuring Evan Buekert on the keys and myself on cello. So now I'd like to discuss with all of our guests a few aspects that really pertain to life as a performer and an educator here in the Kootenays, and specifically in Cranbrook, where, of course, the Symphony of the Kootenays is based. One thing I'm really interested to know, and I've had a bit of experience with this myself as a performer here in the West Kootenays, is, what is it like balancing your life as an educator and a performer, and trying to strike that balance? Stephanie, what do you think about that for yourself?
Well, for me, it's at times challenging. However, my family is very supportive. So when opportunities do present themselves, my husband is fantastic and encourages me to perform as much as I can when the opportunities are there.
Nice. Yeah. And family is really, really important, and for all of us to be able to maintain what we do and balance everything. And how about you, Evan? You also teach at a school. So finding time to, when a performance comes up, having to sort of drop everything and scramble to make everything to come together. How do you make that work?
That's always a fun challenge. Oftentimes it includes my students. If I take the symphony as an example, we have crowds of groups of kids who are interested in tech, interested in stage managing, interested in the music we're playing, and I'm often able to rope them into the project, so to speak, and have some fun giving the students a chance to experience a professional situation. But this year, I'm really excited to do a lot of online work. Everyone is working towards recording sessions once a week, and we're compiling basically a school album, which we're looking forward to releasing, where every class, every ensemble, choir, band, jazz groups are all going to have a few things on this album. So our performances have actually become part of our daily life here at Mount Baker. So they become one and the same this year. Unfortunately or fortunately, it's allowed me a chance to do some really interesting new technology with my students.
Very cool. So obviously, incorporating your teaching with performing, that's a really great angle to take. So Penny, how do you balance time between all your different teaching aspects? How do you balance finding that time to practice and keep on top of your playing?
Well, it's usually when we have symphony, that's a lot of my practice is devoted to my symphony part. And I also play with the chamber music group, not so much lately, of course, given COVID, but working on that and organizing student ensembles in normal times. So all of those things play a role.
Of course, yeah. And Stephanie, for you, you've got a lot of prep work, I imagine, involved with your job. And how do you find time after, say, spending several hours a day doing prep work, the energy that goes in, especially working with that sort of age group that you specialize in? How do you make it work when you have to come home and you look at your flute, or you look at it in its case and you go, oh, I better do some scales? Do you find time for that? How do you make that work?
I'm actually very fortunate here at Parkland. I feel like this is kind of my home away from home. And I always leave feeling energized. The kids are fantastic to work with. And when I get home, my downtime is kind of my practice time. And often in the evenings after dinner, I'll carve some time to do practicing and get into that. So that I can have a little bit of quiet time for myself.
Nice. So it's sort of like a part of it's your own personal time. That's really nice that it's still that kind of a passion for you. Evan, do you feel the same way? Do you feel like, after the energy that goes into everything that you do at the school, that you will still find yourself at the keyboard from time to time?
I agree with Stephanie exactly. It does really energize me to watch all these students working, and it feels like a bit of professional development when I get a chance to play my own things or prepare for my own opportunities. My schedule allows most of my students to take music classes before school or after school hours, and it gives me a little bit of time during the day to be able to practice my instrument in the schoolroom with a nice acoustic, and it feels like the thing to do when I'm waiting for the next group to come in. It all sorts of meld together. And I think
Nice.
The students like to see me playing when they're coming in.
Nice. Yeah. Well, that's really great that you guys still, after, years of doing what you do, you still find, clearly this is your passion. This is your calling. That's really wonderful to hear. So, I'm also interested to know all of your opinions on just the Kootenays in general and performance opportunities and if you find a balance between having to create as well as look for these opportunities. Like Penny, you were mentioning you play in a chamber group. Is that sort of is that one of your projects that you find you're trying to initiate opportunities to perform?
Yes, we're across 130 kilometers of highway. When we first began, we had somebody in Fernie, somebody in Kimberley, myself in Cranbrook, and somebody in Jaffrey. And so it could be a challenge to get together, but we made it work. We're all quite passionate about playing. And we were so pleased to find each other that we actually call our quartet Heart's Content, which sounds a bit Harlequinesque, but it was just an expression of how happy we were to play together.
Of course, yeah, and of course, managing your own private studio, I imagine that makes it at least a little more flexible, right, in terms of being able to move things around when need be to put the energy towards a project like
Yes, it's a definite advantage.
Evan, how about you? I mean, I've seen you perform in a few different venues and a few different groups in town. Maybe just tell the listeners who maybe don't know. I'm sure there are very few of them, but what sort of performance opportunities you create for yourself?
Well, I'm in about 3 different ensembles that are all on hold at the moment. We are all trying to learn our pieces and prepare to meet together when we're finally allowed to. I'm in a beautiful jazz quartet called Little Jazz Orchestra, piano, bass, drums, and guitar. I'm starting out as a musical director with a 10-piece Latin and swing and funk and jazz band that we've just decided we're going to call ourselves Brass Roots. That's going to maybe take place as soon as our COVID allows. We have music and scores, and everyone is wondering how to get that started. And also playing in a really fun Jamiroquai cover band where I get to get all my synthesizers and have some fun. But that's also doesn't exist yet. It's just in concept mode at this point. So I'm having a lot of fun planning what will happen and wondering how many rehearsals will actually take place in the space of 24 hours on the day that this is allowed to open again.
Nice. And for you as a strings teacher here in the community, how do you feel this Symphony of the Kootenays sort of role is in the community as far as sort of fostering teachers, performers, students, and all of that, and sort of getting that out into the community so people can not only see a symphony but understand everything that goes into it?
Oh, I think it's a wonderful opportunity. I particularly like the open rehearsal format that we've had, where students are allowed to come and watch. They love it, and a lot of students do, take that invitation to do that. And it's wonderful to have that available to them. And I've made it part of a program. I had a 5-star program where in order to get their star, they have to do different things. And one of those things is to attend the community performances or the open rehearsal. And then I ask them about it. Sometimes I make them fill out a little quiz about it and ask them what they thought and what they liked best and why did they like it, and this sort of thing. So it's definitely a great idea to open that up to students.
Yeah, that's definitely something I was very passionate about when we started, and I think it's something that I've heard a lot of positive reviews about too. So it's definitely something we're definitely going to continue and maybe see what we can expand with that program, because I think it is very nice to reach out to. Stephanie, how about you? Like in terms of the the demographic that you work with primarily, and the students and just sort of being a member of the community. I mean, how do you see the Symphony of the Kootenays role in Cranbrook primarily, but also in the Kootenays as a larger?
Well, I think it's incredible that we have the symphony in the Kootenays. I think that, it is a huge area and people come in from all over. And when I have the opportunity to perform with the ensemble, my students come out and it gives them a chance to experience something that they may not have experienced before. I think I read an article that said, I think it was something that 65% of adults listen to classical music, but only 3 to 5% attend concerts. And I think that Cranbrook is so supportive of the arts that when the symphony is in town, I think it's really important, and people do come out to support the ensemble.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's such an important part of the community, and often we're often, looking at why that is. The question is always why. Why should we have a symphony? And I think that there's such a great tradition, and there is an enjoyment for it. And of course, engaging new audiences is one of our prime mandates. So we're always looking for ways to understand our audiences better and see how we can engage people. Evan, you've probably been involved with the symphony the longest of our guests here. Of course, your relationship with the high school and our kind of collaboration. What about you in terms of how your students see the orchestra, what involvement they have, and those kind of things, and in terms of the symphony's role in the community, how do you see that?
I think it's an integral part of our whole community structure. It even had a good piece of history to play in why I moved back to this area from Vancouver to join this beautiful country community in this country for the lifestyle. The symphony there, it lends legitimacy to the students I teach. They say, look, we're in this room, we're performing, we're rehearsing, but right through those doors, there's the backstage to the symphony. Let's go listen to them warm up. It actually creates a whole lot of gravity and a whole lot of reality for the students who are interested in performing further out of school and perhaps continuing on. So it's an integral part of the culture. I can't believe how fond I am of telling whoever will listen to me on our travels and tours that we have our own symphony in a town of this size, and it's a darn good one. So.
Well, that's great to hear, and definitely I agree that we're all not only fortunate, but of course the community benefits, but the symphony also benefits, and one thing I think that is really interesting about our Kootenay community is just the warmth and reception and support for organizations like this. And it's really special, especially involving people like yourselves who are in the community and you're on the ground and you're doing the work every day and you're fostering a love of music, and that's so important. So speaking of collaboration, we're now going to hear a piece that we all got to record together, and this is really exciting. Whose idea was this piece again? Was it Penny? Was this your suggestion?
Yes, that's
nice.
right.
So do you want to just tell everyone what we're about to hear?
Yes, Bach's, J.S. Bach's Brennenberg number 5, the Effettuoso, which is the middle movement.
And that was the Affettuoso from Bach Brandenburg number 5. Beautiful work, everybody, and it was such a pleasure to play with you all. Again, big thanks to our guests for this evening's show. We'd also like to thank our sponsors, BC Arts Council, as well as Columbia Basin Trust, in addition to all of the other community organizations that support the Symphony of the Kootenays. We'd also like to thank you, our audience, for watching this show, as well as supporting us both on and off the stage. A special thanks as well to our board members who work tirelessly behind the scenes to make all of this happen. And right now they're working very hard to get the symphony back on the stage soon. Head on over to our website, sotk.ca, for more information about the symphony and what's been happening. Also, don't forget to subscribe and like this video if you've enjoyed our content. If you hit that bell button beside the subscribe button, you'll be notified about future episodes of The Green Room and other releases by the symphony. Tune in on March 27th to see some of our cello players all talking about what it's like to travel and play together as a section. Anne Scott, Shirley Wright, and Liz Tremblay all travel from Calgary to join us every single performance, and they've all been tremendous supporters of the orchestra as well as great musical additions. Tune in, 7:30 Mountain, 6:30 Pacific, right here on The Green Room.